Hi there, everybody. I want to introduce you to someone who has made a huge influence in my life from her work and her voice. And I am so pleased to share with you her views on such an important topic, a topic that really invades every sphere of society. And she has some knowledge on this issue. So, welcome, Katelyn Beaty.
It's great to see you, Tiffany. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Katelyn, your book, A Woman's Place, again, was a huge influence on my life and my work, and the women in my world who got it in their stockings that year that it came out. Before we talk about this issue of silencing women and how working women are more affected really than anyone else, can you share a little bit about you and your book?
Mm. Yeah, so I wrote A Woman's Place a few years ago because I realized that there was this really rich and exciting conversation happening about the integration of faith and work. Like, how does our faith impact every part of our lives, including how most of us spend 40 hours a week, right? Um, but in that conversation, it tended to be oriented around men's experience in the workplace. And I found that there weren't a lot of conversations happening about um, how women can not only bring their faith to bear in their daily work, but actually encouraging women toward ambition, toward professional pursuits. I found the church to be a strange place to talk about my work as a Christian woman. And so I wanted to imagine that there were other women out there who resonated with my experience, who wanted encouragement in their professional lives, and who wanted a theology of work, who wanted to hear that like God cares about our work as humans, as women, and that we needn't fall into kind of rigid or overly narrow roles when we're thinking about all that God intended women to do and be in the world. And so I really wanted to offer vision for other women because it was something that I needed myself in my own life and work.
One of the things that really stuck out to me about your book, and I want to say it was in a later chapter, was how in corporate America and in the workplace, women were advancing and holding high positions, but still were invited to play with the kids in childcare at church. And not that that's a bad thing. We're not saying that, taking care of our young ones for 60 minutes on a Sunday is bad, but the idea that that was all there was for them. And as somebody who served in ministry, not in a capacity assigned to women or youth, I think it's just so important and vital that every woman knows that there is room for their ambition, both in the church and in the workplace. So thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you a little bit about your experience, especially writing that book. From your research, can you share why workplaces and churches who promote women to hold seats of power are a crucial piece of the puzzle in addressing this silencing of women?
So I think about two elements to the answer to that question. One is that it's been be what we can't see, and so the role of modeling, and as women having opportunities to see other women step into positions of leadership. And the more that that happens, the more our imaginations are shaped to actually believe that we ourselves as women can also step into those positions of leadership, and that hopefully everybody around us can imagine like a leader doesn't have to be a white affluent male.
What? What? No.
I know, like newsflash for your viewers.
Yeah.
Leadership can look a lot of different ways, and obviously I believe God calls all types of people to positions of leadership. So I think the modeling aspect is really important, but I think the role that churches and kind of Christian communities more broadly have, it really has to do with anthropology and how spiritual communities teach about gender and gender roles and kind of who women are as image bearers. I think all of us, anybody watching this, I know that this is true for you and me. have encountered teachings that purport to be, biblical truth or authoritative about women that, one, are not a plain reading of scripture,
Yeah.
but also have been used to silence and oppress women, or to keep women from all that I believe God calls women to do and be. And so what spiritual communities need to do is to kind of check their teachings around gender and femininity, and what it means to be created in the image of God as women and men. And part of that, I believe, is seeing that as image bearers, whether male or female, we have a crucial role to play in stewarding culture, in wielding cultural influence, and shaping whatever sphere of influence we find ourselves in, shaping our world to reflect more kingdom values, to leave kind of our sphere of the world better than when we found it, right?
Yeah.
And the world needs men and women alike participating in that cultural renewal, in order for the kingdom of God to be more fully and clearly reflected. So I think it really comes down to teaching and the shaping of imaginations, and that Christian communities have such an important role in shaping our imaginations and what we think we're able to do.
Yeah. And I think it starts so young. Before they're in youth group and hearing about smoking hot wives or hearing about purity culture and purity pledges, I think it really starts so much younger than that. Whether it's on the playground or whether it's a 2 and 3-year-old, I think these conversations have to start young. They have to start early, and it makes a world of a difference. I have 2 boys, as you know. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and it's a constant conversation that my husband and I both have equally, of what can a woman do? What can a girl do? And
Mm.
I remember, even just to give you a peek into our home, even
Mm-hmm.
a few years ago, Jericho, my oldest, he said, "So can boys preach too?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Oh, buddy, if you knew how how
How
far we've
happy
come
that
for you
makes
to think
me.
that." Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, "Do boys get to do that too?" I was like, "Absolutely. Yep, there's room for everybody." So,
Yeah.
um, I think
Mm.
it starts in I think it starts young. I think it starts in the home, and most definitely has to be shaped and informed in the church.
Mhm.
Next, I want to ask, what's holding women back from holding positions of power? No, feel free to answer this with a more practical answer. Um, I know we just hit on white men who have much influence, but what do you feel are really the behind the scenes reasons, not the reasons that we hear from the platform? Oh, they don't have enough qualifications, or they haven't enough experience. But what do you really think?
Mm. I mean, I'm certainly not the first person to reflect on this. Sheryl Sandberg writes about this. Anybody writing about women in the workplace has touched on the sense of internalized self-questioning, or the imposter syndrome. Even highly accomplished, educated women in the top of their fields second guessing their own ability to be in those positions of power. And so I don't have a hard and fast practical way to address that. I just know that there's something happening in how women are taught and shaped, as you said, from an early age. Those messages that we get from day one, but powerfully shape our own sense of self as women. And so I think that's where the role of other women and having a community of support and encouragement, and like a cheer squad, if we want to go with that image. I was not a cheerleader. I was a band nerd.
Did you play the trumpet? I need to know. What did you play?
I played mallet percussion.
Okay. I was going to go clarinet
Xylophone.
next. Mallet percussion was farther down the list of
I'm
guesses.
happy to play anytime you want to hear. Wow, I took us really off a field, but yeah, finding other women who are also, trying to wield
Yeah.
influence and authority in their own spheres, really being there to kind of counteract some of the negative self-talk and negative messages that we've internalized. So I think that that is really important. In my work at Christianity Today, I ended up not only, connecting with the other women editors on staff and finding a lot of support, encouragement there, but really also creating a community of women writers who were, and to this day, it's just a private Facebook group, but we're still one another in our work, championing each other's work. I think that has been really crucial for me. Just more practically, I think knowing your policies around workplace flexibility, around parental leave policies, around having questions or having candid conversations about pay equity, championing other women, and making sure that the questions that you're bringing to HR or to your boss aren't just for you, but they're actually advocating for anyone who might be affected by those questions. It wasn't until well into my professional life that I started seeing the ways that bad policies really hamper women in the workplace. And sometimes it takes someone asking about a policy or asking why there's no policy or advocating for better policies and kind of creating a quorum to change workplace culture for workplaces to be more equitable for women, especially around issues of pay and flexibility. So I think those are super practical things that I wish that I had thought about way before, starting off in my career. I wish that I had been more informed about those issues. I would have probably asked for more pay because I was definitely underpaid for a while there.
Weren't we all? Isn't that? Oh man. Yeah. Not great. Not great. I want to swing back to what you said about bringing up an issue, not on behalf of only yourself, but on behalf of the whole. And I think that there's so much to be said about that because before stuff hits the fan, before something goes wrong, whether there's a dispute over pay or leave or misconduct, just this walking it back before there's emotions high and before there's something on the line, being able to have those conversations up front. And I think, like you said, that's what you wish you would have known when you first started out in your professional career. I absolutely echo that. That would have been a game changer. Probably wouldn't have worked as long as I did at the place I did. It would have shaped a lot of conversations. And so I think that this idea of advocating on behalf of the whole, especially when women are tokenized in the workplace. I'm a woman of color. I was very much tokenized as a woman of color in the workplace. So I felt so lucky to be there. And I think so many of us, we just feel so lucky to have gotten as far as we have. So this idea of, okay, now you're asking me to advocate not just for myself, but for the whole. And the answer is absolutely yes. We cannot move forward. As you said, we cannot push the movement forward unless we are willing to move beyond our own needs, our own desires, our own wants, our own families, and really advocate for other women in the workplace. So that's, man, it's easier said than done, but is outrageously necessary.
I totally resonate with that sense of, gosh, I just am so grateful to have a seat at the table. I really don't want to rock the boat. Yeah. But one, even if you're just advocating for yourself, everybody should advocate to be treated fairly in the workplace. But also, anytime you advocate for yourself as a woman around issues of, pay or flexibility or, raising concerns about misconduct or what are the policies around that, you really are advocating for other women too. It's not really just for yourself. And, ideally, you're actually improving the workplace itself. So I think we have to get over this sense that if we speak up, we're being selfish or a problem, right?
Yeah. There's, like you said, the internalized and the internalized conditioned belief that we are second and that we are inferior. The rubber really meets the road when you have to not only address those internal beliefs to be able to speak up, but believing that it matters and believing that your voice and those hard conversations will reap a reward. Lastly, how can we all advocate for women to have a voice at the table where decisions are being made?
Mm. Yeah, I think this goes back to the sense that what we were just talking about, when you advocate for yourself, ideally you're making space for other women at the table. So I think women who are in kind of majority male in work environments or organizations or churches, sometimes we suffer from this false sense that like there can only be one
Yeah.
or that if there are several women at the table or more women coming to the table, that there's this competitive spirit that has to emerge between women. And I think that is one, a lie of Satan, not to put too fine a point on it, but also such like a patriarchal
Yeah.
result, to have this sense that, okay, we can have one, but if there are more than one, then the power, right, the power
Yes.
imbalance
Yeah.
might be start to be corrected, and people who have power might feel like their power is being taken away as we create a more equal workplace. And so, yeah, just always thinking about creating more space at the table for other women and taking a posture of collaboration over competition, and having that be a very intentional choice, because it's so easy to fall into the other attitude. The other thing too that I think has to happen, that I think you do a great job of addressing in your book, Tiffany, is that when we talk about women's advancement in the workplace or in the church, in professional settings, this isn't just a women's issue.
Yeah.
I think this is changing. My hope is that this is changing, but I think for a long time, men have tuned out some of those conversations because they assume that it's a women's problem, and so the solution is just going to rest with women. But as with so many issues of inequity or mistreatment, the people in positions of power have to be the ones to engage the problem as well, right? And examine their own role in, either in this case, like silencing women or marginalizing women's voices. And those are hard conversations, but absolutely, I think nothing will change for most women in the workplace if men aren't having these good and hard and necessary conversations and taking responsibility for changing the game for women
Yeah.
as well.
You really hit the nail on the head. I was about to ask you, what's the unique role of men in the workplace and in systems where it is male dominated? And that's exactly it. They have to take a position of humility. I mean, it really is humility and willing to move toward balanced power and understanding that they are uniquely blessed and enriched when women have a place and a voice. I think that
Mm,
this idea that this only affects women is just ridiculous.
mhm, mhm.
Gendered equality matters for everyone. Everyone wins when women have a fair voice and place. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. I value them. I know that they're going to be a blessing to so many. And to learn more about Katelyn, you can look below this video and check out her book, A Woman's Place. Thanks, Katelyn.
Thanks so much, Tiffany.